Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis, a podcast dedicated to the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. What's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 2:20 Eastern Time. The court is currently in recess for lunch, so we wanted to hop on and do part one of day two. Last night, we noticed that part two went almost an hour, so we just decided to, again today, do two separate ones so they're not too long for you guys. It's been an interesting day in court so far.
Yeah, it has. It's like been boxing matches.
Oh, my goodness. It's been hostile. I think that's the word.
Yeah, Pryor is he's hostile towards everybody.
Yeah, I don't know if he maybe watched A Few Good Men or Matlock or something and saw some bad lawyer who's going to go in with some big bad attitude, and it's really annoying. There was a couple of times I wanted to punch my computer screen.
Yeah.
And I'm not a violent person, but
if he uses the term, "You can't handle the truth," then we'll know. Yeah.
Yeah. He really, I thought, borderlined on being just abusive to Melanie Gibb in a way.
Yeah. But I loved her spunk and her fight back towards him.
She gave it back.
She did.
She did a couple of times. She told him, "Can you please turn your microphone up facing your chin so I can hear you," or something along those lines.
Yeah, he's just a smart aleck.
He's a big smart aleck. But I guess that's all you have left when your client's guilty as sin.
True.
And it's all being laid out in a preliminary. This isn't even half the evidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's an angry man. Well, he was arrested for assault and got 120 days. I don't know if he served anything, but clearly he has a temper.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that in. I normally wouldn't bring up dirty baggage, but I don't like Pryor.
Yeah, me neither.
What a jerk.
Yeah.
So Melanie Gibb was on cross-exam, but before the hearing got started, she spoke to Nate outside the courtroom. What did she say?
Yeah, Nate talked to her very briefly coming in, and she said that yesterday her highlight of the day was getting to talk to Kay and Larry.
Yeah.
And Larry and they were appreciative of what she's doing and all that stuff, it sounded like. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then this morning, before she was called to the stand and before court went back into session, she was sitting behind Kay and Larry, and they were having a pleasant conversation. I think they were laughing a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and I know in the past that Kay had said she was grateful that Melanie had spoken up.
Yeah.
And but Pryor made sure he asked her, "Were you offered a deal since you lied to investigators about having JJ?" He wanted to know if they offered her a deal, and she said no, they did not.
Yeah. And that's been in question the whole time. Was that why she's doing what she's doing? And so she set the record straight today that no.
Yeah. I have a newfound respect for Melanie Gibb. I've never strongly disliked her. I think I said yesterday on the show that I think she was drinking that Kool-Aid really hard. And I think a little separation from them did her good. And I don't think that authorities really, to charge her with lying to authorities would probably undermine the value that she would have on their side.
Yeah.
In this whole trial, because I do believe Melanie Gibb is going to be the one that solidifies this case against them.
Yeah, it's huge.
And we don't know too, are there other conversations that are text messages that she has saved? I would assume probably that we just haven't heard yet and may not hear till trial.
Yeah.
So I just think there's a whole lot there. And then did you see where Pryor asked her, "Why did you just look at Mr. Wood?" And she said, "I wasn't looking, I was glancing." And he said, "You were looking at Mr. Wood." It was just sort of like, okay, why does that matter?
Exactly.
Is she not allowed?
Yeah, it's against the rules to look at the prosecution.
Yeah. And then when Melanie was explaining the preparedness camp where she met Chad, she said, "Your client was a speaker at that camp." And then Pryor got really mad and said, "Don't place blame on my client."
Yeah.
And she wasn't. She was just saying that he was there and he was a speaker.
Yeah.
And then just to keep the nasty going, he asked her 2 or 3 times if she had any kind of a disorder that prevented her from comprehending things or hearing things.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know. I think maybe he's just mad she wasn't answering the way he wanted to. She was answering with what I thought was very well placed snark.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was like she's going in like a saloon shooting, you know, like ping, ping, ping. She's just firing right back at him, and I loved it.
Yeah. And she just said that her and Chad initially had talked about his visions of the last days and that sort of thing. I don't know. Pryor, Judge Eden seems really frustrated at this point with Pryor.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You can tell on his face. He sort of looks up at the ceiling when he's talking to Pryor. You know, it's kind of like when my kids are talking to me and they don't really want to, and they just kind of look at the ceiling and I think Edens has had his belly full.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, and then he asked about who she had talked to in the FBI and the police department and stuff. He was wanting all these dates, and she says, "I just don't remember," and he had a problem with that.
Yeah, and I totally understand. Like she remembers, like, and I'm not saying none of this is important. But I totally get, you know, in your mind, certain dates stick out because of certain things happen on that date.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally get it. And you're not going to remember every time you talk to an agent or what month it was or what day or what time.
Right.
I mean.
Oh, I couldn't. You know that. I forget everything.
Yeah. And
I would be
like when I interrupt you right now, you'll forget what you was going to say. So.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I did it again.
Yeah.
Fruit Loop knows me better than anybody. We've been friends way too long.
There was another thing that he brought up was Chad writing fiction books.
Yeah, he sort of, look, I'm going to put it out there. I think it is pretty much a given fact now that Chad is flipped on Lori. Just the way Pryor is talking about Lori.
Yeah.
He's really trying to separate Chad from her, even saying, oh, well, they didn't hang out all that much before September. And Melanie Gibb was like, well, yeah,
that's incorrect.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Yeah.
Because they even talked about when they were in Arizona, I guess, at Lori's house, and Chad was there.
Yeah.
So it just seems to me like Pryor is really trying to start to divide Lori and Chad, which is kind of impossible to do.
Yeah, he's definitely trying to go that route. And it's like, it's going to be a crash and burn for him.
Yeah, but I just thought it was really, you know, normally you would say, has anybody told you what to say at this hearing? But he sort of went on and on, insinuating maybe she was coached by the prosecutor or law enforcement. He's just grasping at straws.
And it doesn't make any sense because, I mean, I know that happens when you meet with, like, the prosecution. He does go over stuff.
Of course. And he tells you normally how it works is they sort of give you a little bit of a heads up of what they're going to be asking you.
Yeah.
They don't tell you what to say. They just give you a little bit of a heads up so that you can be prepared and think. And that way you're not on the stand just, you know, like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah. I mean, you're sitting in this, what Edens calls it, the cubicle. So you're sitting in this glass fishbowl. And you have everybody looking at you. And I mean, I know there's limited people in there, but you're testifying in a court of law about a serious thing.
Right. And you're also testifying to potentially millions of people that are watching it just like us.
Yeah.
It's a stressful situation.
It would be. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you notice when Pryor said that Lori has a dominant personality and she's very convincing?
Yeah.
See, that just goes along with my theory that Chad is flipping.
Yeah, and I wonder, Means is taking all this in. I wonder what he's telling her.
Yeah, I mean, if Lori didn't know maybe that Chad was flipping, I think they're probably having that conversation today.
Yeah, I would think. I wonder if his car's there.
I don't know.
I wonder if he's there.
He was with her. I don't know, but and then Pryor kind of insinuated that maybe Melanie Gibb and Tylee did not get along.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know.
Wood really tried to keep that out. He was objecting a lot.
Well, it doesn't mean anything.
It really doesn't mean anything. Melanie, I mean, is he trying to, is Pryor trying to insinuate that maybe Melanie Gibb killed Tylee, which
Yeah.
doesn't fit. But
No.
I didn't understand why he had this real big need for Melanie to confirm that maybe her and Tylee didn't get along. And you were saying earlier about Tally's personality, what you thought, and how that might come into play. What did you say about that?
Yeah. I mean, we've heard from April and her friend's mom, and I think some other people Annie Cushing, yeah, that Tylee was I guess blunt, and she was I've lost the word I used earlier, but it's bouncing around in there. But she was very opinionated and knew what she wanted, and et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, it's not unusual.
Yeah.
I mean, your mom gets this new friend, and there could have been some jealousy there.
Yeah, and maybe jealousy, but also, I mean, Tylee, from what we've heard, seemed like she was pretty level-headed, and she may have seen the change in her mom pretty rapidly after she started hanging around with these people. And I mean, we don't know, but maybe Tylee raised objections to Chad and everybody in that group, and
which could be one of the reasons why she was killed.
Right.
I mean, we don't know that, but
yeah. The other thing that really bothered me about Pryor was when Melanie Gibb, he was asking Melanie Gibb about her autistic son being questioned by police, and he essentially called her child, who has autism, a liar.
Yeah.
The judge, when Pryor asked her if she had an autistic kid, the prosecutor objected, and the judge said, "I'll allow it, but you're bordering on irrelevant." That I don't even know how that fit into this picture. Why are you trying to point out that an autistic kid may have given a false statement to police?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I just thought that was a really low moment in a morning of really low moments. I mean, that one stood out to me.
Well, he's grasping at straws.
Yeah. But did you also get the sense that maybe he was sort of going down this road of starting to give a bit of their defense in that possibly Lori and Alex were the masterminds, because he kept inquiring about the closeness of their relationship?
Yeah, it was weird. The closeness and who shared a room. Did Alex sleep over? How many bedrooms was in the apartment? Like, it was just really weird. He gives me creepy vibes anyways.
Yeah, I don't like him. I just don't like his tone. He comes across as kind of I'm better than you in the manner in which he speaks, and he gives me the willies.
Yeah, and I just want to make a point to say that Chad acts like the assistant defense attorney.
Yeah, well, I guess he's
like,
yeah, it's weird.
So annoying. I mean, and he'll nod his head like, I don't forget who was on the stand, and when he was done, he nodded his head like, okay, thank you. Like, I don't know.
And also when you mentioned that Pryor said something about Chad's books being fiction, Chad had passed him a note right before he said that, so I think that came from Chad to point out that, I mean, he's a self-proclaimed prophet.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden his books are fiction.
And that's a lie, because he wrote an autobiography.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
That's not fiction.
Right. But I mean, that morning was just, it was stressful.
Yeah. But I just, Melanie Gibb was like in the boxing ring, and she's just like throwing it right. She was not intimidated at all.
Yeah.
I mean, she came out guns blaring, and
right.
It's truth to her.
Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't hesitate. I mean, on dates, I would, because I mean, I would do the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's just truthful, and I mean, I can sense she has a peace about it.
I think so. I think she's just secure in what her testimony is. I mean, at this point, we know she lied to authorities, but look, some time has passed. That might have been a panic move. But every time I've seen Melanie on an interview or in the courtroom, I mean, she seems to be very sure of her facts. So at this point, I don't see any reason she would lie to protect Chad and Lori, or even herself when it comes to this. No. I think authorities know everything anyway.
Yeah.
So then they moved on to David Warwick, who is Melanie Gibbs' boyfriend, and bless his heart, he really had a hard time hearing. He's hard of hearing, right?
Yeah, and he had those headphones on, and they had to take them off because it was making a loud squealy noise.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I've noticed, even Edens has said, you got to speak up, because they're behind that plexiglass.
Uh-huh.
And it's probably hard to hear, because the speakers haven't been altered in the room.
Yeah, no.
So the speakers are still in the same space. So when you create a barrier like that,
yeah,
it's going to be a little different, hard to hear. And plus, she said he was he worked construction. I think he's a builder or something.
Yeah, sometimes they lose their hearing. My dad is a welder and he owns a welding and fabricating business, and he just recently got hearing aids because years and years of being around this constant noise and banging and stuff, it took a toll. So
loud equipment is rough on your hearing.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting because David Warwick said that the one time that Chad was over there, he asked Chad about his relationship with Tammy Daybell, who was obviously, his wife that died, but Wood did not elaborate. And so I think we've seen a few times today where Wood is introducing stuff, but not going any further. And I think this stuff comes in a big way at trial.
Most definitely.
Including one of the last things we heard about, which was the cell phone that was taken from Chad's house during the January search warrant. They made a point to talk about the case and what color it was.
Yeah.
And they said they specifically were talking about the back of the phone. So, yeah, there's a lot of things I think that are going to come in a big, big way, but just not here.
Yeah. And then I think they're going to try to discredit David saying that he couldn't hear what was said.
Yeah, yeah.
But vision is what he saw. He saw Alex bring JJ back in.
Yeah.
You don't have to have hearing to see, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to have that to testify to that because he saw him come in the room. Pryor's questioning there, it got really irritating. There was a lot of objections in there because none of it was relevant.
It wasn't, but Eden sustained a lot of those objections, and I think, again, he's just being cautious and not giving Pryor any reason to complain that he wasn't allowed to ask certain questions. I think Eden's, he's just over it, but... you got to get through this. I don't know that we'll finish today. I mean, it's already...
right?
I don't know how many more witnesses they have. There were potentially, 16? Was it 16?
Yeah, there's 16 on the list.
And we've been through a handful. Yeah. We haven't even been through, I haven't counted, but we may have a long way to go with this. Then Pryor asked David Warwick, again, does Melanie Gibb have any kind of an auditory problem, processing information, or hearing disorder? And I'm just like,
yeah,
really, dude? You're going there again?
She's answered it. She answered no. So then you're going to ask him, and there was an objection, and it was sustained. So. Yeah,
and then Pryor makes a comment. If you didn't see JJ on the 22nd, which was the day, was that the day that was the day,
that was a Sunday.
That was the day JJ was killed. Or that next night.
That's the day they had the podcast and Alex brought him back in, was on that Sunday evening.
So Pryor says if you didn't see JJ on the 22nd, there are chances that he may not have been there. And if Melanie saw JJ, you would have seen him too. And I think there were some objections. I mean,
well, here's the thing. Melanie testified that she saw, she glanced over. They were still doing the podcast and Alex walks in with him. Well, when you're seated like that, like right now where we're seated, I have my back to that door. I can't see somebody come in.
Right.
So depending on where they were facing, he may not have seen him at that point in time or whatever. It was Pryor being dumb.
Yeah. Oh man, we got to think of a nickname for him. We'll have to think on that and let you guys know what we come up with. So then the next witness was somebody that represented the jailhouse recordings.
Oh, this was great.
We were both like, what? Oh my gosh, we're about to hear a recording. Unfortunately, the audio was not good.
Yeah, it was hard to understand. It was like he was eating the cell phone.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think this shows that he was, at some point he was talking to Lori on the phone.
Yeah.
When he was out, when they were searching the house.
He did say something about the kids. We couldn't hear because Lori said, "Are you okay?" And Chad said, "The police are here." And she says, "Are they seizing stuff?" And then it was something about the kids. And I think the reason Wood might have brought this in is because it shows that Chad can't play dumb and say he didn't know the kids were on the property.
Yeah. I think they're going to try to clear that up a little bit too.
Yeah, but she kept saying, "Are they seizing stuff?" And he was like, "They're searching the property." So I think that's just a way Wood, can say.
And if we can get our hands on that, we'll try to clean it up as well and see. But it is kind of, some of it's murmured. But she says stuff like, I couldn't figure out why she said, as soon as they called, she said, "Are you okay?"
Right. And
And
her
I'm
lawyer may have told her, like, they're searching Chad's property.
could be. Um, but she asked several times. They're searching. Oh, are they seizing? Are they seizing stuff? And he's like, no, they're searching the property.
Yeah.
He says that twice.
Yeah. And they're, without saying it, they're about to find the kids, essentially. And I would love to hear that little snippet where the last word he said was kids, just to see, and I'm sure there'll be a transcript or something, or
Yeah.
we're going to import that audio and try to clean it up ourselves
Yeah.
and see if we can hear a little bit better.
But he says, glad you called and all this stuff.
But he wasn't sure. She said, should I call you later? And I don't know if I heard correctly, but it was almost like, I don't know if you can. I think
he
knew.
said you can try.
Yeah, and he knew what was about to happen.
Yeah, he about to be in a pokey.
So the next witness was Mr. Daniels. He is from the FBI, and he's a senior team leader of the evidence recovery team, which is the team that went in and secured the scene and dug for the remains. So he explained their process and said that about a week before this, it was a week before they actually went to the property, they knew they were going to search.
Yeah, they had a week to prepare.
And so they got their plan together with local law enforcement. And he said the first area of interest that they went to was the fire pit area.
Yeah, because they could see it on the satellite imagery.
And I'll say Chad was super interested in this guy's testimony. It was one of the few times he actually sat and watched the witness.
Yeah.
Normally he has kind of his eyes down or whatever, but he was shifting in his chair a lot more, I noticed. I think
and he had that crease in between his eyes.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And the way that they the pet cemetery, the reason that they focused on that area, he said, was the suspicion was raised in that text message from Chad to Tammy about the raccoon.
Yep.
So I think you can start to see a pattern here where they just didn't think about things they were texting and how it would come in a trial situation.
Yeah, and I think that text is going to be huge.
It's going to be really big, yeah. And we don't know what
else.
else.
That's a overt thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's texting, giving an explanation of why there's a hole in, like somebody dug in his yard.
Yeah, and the great debate has been settled about the dog statue, because when the day of the search, there is a statue of a black dog that obviously is right by the pet cemetery. And the internet it was sort of is the dress blue or gold? It was kind of that kind of a fight. Half the people said that was a cadaver dog. The other half said that was a statue. It was a statue.
Yep.
That's how they know. They knew where the pet cemetery was to start digging for that. So they introduced some photos of the different graves. They called them Burial Site 1, which was JJ's, and Burial Site 2 for Tylee. And he talked about Burial Site 1 by the pond. They noticed some stuff about the vegetation.
Yeah, and we talked about that before, that Chad's ignorance in not cutting his grass is what helped them identify where the areas were, because that grass was not as high as the other. So, and this gentleman, Special Agent Daniels, he is the one he was the senior team leader of the ERT team, and he was the one who cut through the JJ, the black bag, and then the white bag.
Mm-hmm. And then he felt with his hands, and he said that human hair kind of spilled out onto his hand, is how he put it.
Yeah.
And JJ, if you all know his haircut, he had a shaved head except for the very top of the head where it was kept long.
Yeah.
So,
and Larry and Kay were a little bit emotional again.
yeah. Obviously, it's very graphic stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to hear that.
It's not anything really more than what we heard yesterday as far as the condition of how they found the body, but a little bit more about how they actually got down to the remains with removing the rocks and the panels, and they knew what they were going for. And we said that day as we were watching it unfold, we both said they know what they're there for, and they know where to look. I
mean, they had the satellite images, the phone pings, the text message. I mean, it was basically a map.
Yeah.
So, and the cadaver dog.
Right. Yeah. And then he talked about, as they were digging, they sort of extended past that 10 by 10 area near the fire pit where Tylee was, and they found some vertebrae.
Yeah.
And then initially the anthropologist couldn't tell if they were human or animal, but Daniel said that he could smell decomposing remains.
Yeah, so they stopped with the bulldozer on that and just did it by hand after that. And I
Yeah.
thought it was really, I mean, law enforcement are like this. They want to be, thorough and get it, but he said we didn't want to leave anything.
Right.
And I think that was we know, I mean, we saw people post some stuff that knew some of the officers how upset they were on site when they
Yeah.
found the bodies and all that. So,
Yeah, it's
I
just
mean, these people
unimaginable.
are humans. I mean, just because they work in law enforcement doesn't mean they don't care. A lot of them have their own kids that are like the same age as Tylee and JJ.
And I think too, a lot of these officers have been working on this since November. So you bond with the families, you feel like you know the kids, and then you just, I guess there's always, I don't know how far back they really had an idea the kids were dead, but it seems like for a while they just didn't know.
Yeah.
Because the FBI at one point said there's no signs of life, no signs of death. So I guess for them too, just like with us, there is a finality in finding those remains that there's no hope.
Yeah.
This becomes a criminal investigation, and you've got 2 dead kids.
Yeah. And you see how those remains have been disposed of, and it is just horrible.
It's terrible. And
Yeah.
he talked about finding some of Tylee's remains that they found some of her pelvic bone that had flesh still on it. But he made a point to say that the remains were in a mass
Yeah.
and they were dismembered and some of them burned. And so they stopped processing. Once they found that pelvic bone in late afternoon, he said they stopped processing the scene for the day and came back the next day.
Yeah. So they secured the scene. Officers from Fremont and Madison, they secured the scene all night, and then they came back the next morning.
Yeah. And so he said the way the remains were found, it made it really difficult for them. He said it was a massive dismembered human remains that were partially burnt, and they couldn't tell what it was.
Yeah.
That's how bad her body was destroyed after death. It's just monsters.
Yeah.
And then they talked about that green bucket again. And just to the side of that, they found her skull. Or I think they said a partial skull.
He didn't say, he said skull.
And-
Yesterday they said partial, but
Okay.
he just said skull and then the jawbone.
With some teeth in there. And that's,
Yeah.
if you remember, they were able to identify Tylee because of an irregularity in her jaw
Yeah.
that obviously her orthodontist had a film of when she had been in for treatment.
Yeah.
But when they tried to remove the remains, he said that they fell apart. So they had to go piece by piece.
Yeah. And it was, he said that the bucket was burned.
Yeah, I don't get the bucket. I don't understand what that was used for.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe we will.
Yeah. It almost sounds like they maybe were trying to burn. I'm waiting to see if they found anything in the fire pit.
Yeah,
That
I think so.
links her, possibly being burned there. I mean, you would think, why would you carry a burned bucket? Because it said yesterday they said that there was remains in the bucket,
Mm-hmm.
and he elaborated a little bit more and said the bucket was burned.
Yeah,
So it's almost like they tried to just burn it, and then
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's kind of where we ended. We ended with Mr. Daniels talking about that crime scene. And so after lunch, Pryor will be on cross-exam, and I'm curious to see if he sort of keeps up this bullying, acting like a jerk mentality.
Some of these he has no. I don't know. What's he gonna question this next one? It's like from the guy from Tellmate, the
Right.
officer, from there.
Yeah.
What's he gonna ask?
Yeah, did you not process things right? I mean, I think that's the only way maybe he can is just try to find some kind of a technicality with how things were entered in or brought into evidence. I don't know. Then again, it might just be a really short cross exam because how do you doubt the FBI when they have
they're-
their ducks in a row?
Yeah, and they're giving you evidence.
Right.
Like it's nothing they've done. Like there's nothing they could have or couldn't have done.
Right. Yeah.
They're just giving evidence of what they found. So
Well, we'll see. We don't know who else is going to testify today. We don't know if this will finish today. It's going pretty slow.
yeah,
So I don't know how did they do it because they only reserved yesterday and today.
Yeah.
For this hearing. I just assume they may try to finish up, but if they don't, I don't know. Do we go back tomorrow? I'm not sure how they work it with the docket.
Yeah, I don't know either if they'll go later today
I,
trying to get
I would
everything in.
I would say if it goes to tomorrow, I mean, this case would probably. We had talked before on a podcast earlier about a month ago about A and B cases where you have your case that takes the priority. And so if you're to be heard by Edens tomorrow, if this case doesn't finish, they probably just bump you.
Yeah.
So I feel like they'll try to finish this up just regardless of today or tomorrow. But we will stay on top of it. Court resumes in about 30 minutes. It's 2:51 on the East Coast. I think Edens said 3:20.
Yeah, I think so.
So we'll be live tweeting at on Twitter at Pretty Lies Alibi. You can watch the trial on our or the hearing on our website at www.prettyliesandalibis.org. And we probably need to update our Facebook page a little bit, but we'll be here. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah. So we will most likely have another second part of this podcast later tonight. But in the meantime, just follow us on social media as we keep going through this hearing.
Goodbye.
Adios.